Hey, everybody. I'm so glad you're here again. Welcome to the Sally Allen podcast. This is Sally Allen, your host. And today I have this amazing guest. Her name is Karen Diers. I don't think she wanted to come on the podcast, but I made her come.
Oh, anything to be with you.
Yeah. Said, I have to hear your story. You have to be on this podcast. So, so glad that she's here. A little bit about Karen. Karen's a mama of 4 kids and 6 grandkids. They're all in Las Vegas. She lives in Las Vegas. She and her husband, David Deers, have been married for 40 years. 40
Almost.
years, almost 40
Almost.
years. Now, she's incredible. Her career is so incredible. She's been a music
Director,
director,
worship leader,
worship leader since you were 15.
singing since I was 15.
Singing since she was 15 years old. Are you going to sing for us, Karen?
I don't know.
We might have you sing a little bit, but the most recently what she's done over the years was she was with Refuge for Women as their city director
Good.
and helped to build the first home here in Las Vegas.
Right.
Right? That's incredible alone. Like that's resilience to the max doing something like that. Right? And tell us a little bit about Refuge for Women.
Refuge for Women is an organization that has existed for about 15 years. It started in Kentucky, and they basically it's a place of refuge and a program for women who are coming out of the sex industry and who have been traumatized by human trafficking. So when they decide they're ready to come out of that, or literally are rescued by Vice or police or FBI, they need a place to go, and Refuge for Women is that place for a solid year of a program of really just starting with healing the heart and retraining the brain, and then helping them get their GED and get out and make a life of them for themselves.
Yeah.
And so that's what that first home was about that we had to establish here back in 2015.
Wow, Karen. It's amazing that you got to do a part of that. It had to be so rewarding.
It was rewarding and exhausting. I mean, if we're talking about resilience, I tell people I've never had to do anything so difficult in my life, and it was the hardest thing I ever had to do. And having 4 adult children and 6 grandchildren, I mean, that maybe doesn't seem like a lot. That's a lot of work right there.
Yeah.
You have a lot of resiliency when you're raising children, as moms know, as they're listening to this, and having grandchildren as well is such a blessing. But running a home for women who have been rescued out of human trafficking and watching what they have to go through every single day, it's kind of like I would tell people it was like pulling the Band-Aid off a wound every single day for them, because then they had to go through the counseling and the trauma over and over and over again to get to a place where they could forgive themselves, embrace God and His purpose for their lives.
Yeah.
You know, become a believer. That was the goal, because we knew that with Jesus they could be delivered and rescued from the deep trauma that they had sustained, and then get a life out of that, build a life, be who God really created them to be.
Yeah. Yeah. But for you doing that and being the city director at the time, there has to be a lot of resiliency that goes with that, because I know, I've served in some of those industries and nonprofits, and it could be a revolving door
Yes.
also. So for you, there had to be resiliency in that.
If it's not there, it's going to be there.
It's going to be there.
Because
Right.
God got me through it. Like I
Yeah.
said, it was very difficult. I was able to endure and get through some breast cancer at the same time. Through all of that, some major female changes were going on at the same time. So there was a lot of need for resiliency, if you want to call it that. And God really, I don't say this lightly, but God got me through those very difficult years. I was with Refuge for Women for 4 years and 4 months. And I tell you, it sucked the life out of me. It's a lot of work, but and very rewarding to see these women graduating. And we have 5 in the home right now,
Yeah.
and they will graduate and get a new life. But yeah, walking through that and then seeing a second home open and a third home open since I left is rewarding as well.
Yeah. Wow. So while we're on the topic of resiliency, I know that you did some research.
I did.
And I want you to share that with us because you put in some work there. when we talk about resiliency, tell me what you found.
Yeah, so Anya Kane, she's a senior reporter for Business Insider. She wrote an article called 11 Signs You're Resilient,
Okay, let's hear though.
even if it doesn't feel like it.
Yeah.
By the way, her name, I was so curious. I'm Googling it going, how do you pronounce this? Because it's spelled A-I-N-E and it's pronounced Anya.
Interesting.
It's Irish. I always find those little
Beautiful.
things
Yeah.
fascinating. And you know what it means? It means brilliant and happiness. I'm like, well,
Wow.
that's a great name for writing an article on resiliency. Here's what she said. She said, number one, hold yourself accountable. For resilient people have a healthy sense of personal responsibility.
I like it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Number two, you don't complain. And I would say you don't let complaining turn to criticism because that's
right.
hard on everybody else.
Right.
You're self-aware. So in other words, you're mindful of yourself and you think about what you're thinking about. And that quote comes from Arthur Brooks' book, Building the Life You Want. Arthur Brooks wrote a great book about think about what you're thinking about. Take those thoughts, and maybe even David touched down on this in his podcast. Take those thoughts that you're thinking, bring them out here to the frontal cortex where you can really think through and get the emotion out of it.
Yeah.
But people that are resilient are self-aware.
So they have high emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or they
I
try
like
to.
it. They try.
They accept their limits. So, when you have weaknesses, you have weaknesses.
Yeah.
Get help for those and play to your strengths. I love that. Play to your strengths. She also says, number 5, you're not afraid to ask for help. And asking for help isn't the same as asking for handouts. I thought that was good.
Interesting.
Don't wallow. In other words, grieve your losses, but make a plan and move on.
Yes.
Yeah. Throughout my life with David, our 40 years of marriage, raising children, grandchildren, sustaining, getting through those illnesses of thyroid cancer, breast cancer, our daughter's thyroid cancer. I mean, life is life, right? It's going to be filled with ups and downs, but through those, you don't wallow in those. You grieve them.
Right.
You allow yourself the time to grieve. You make a plan and you move on. And David would always say, Karen, move on. Those are the best words my husband has ever said to me. Move on.
Move on.
Don't wallow. You don't compare yourself to others.
Oh, that's the.
So live your best life, right?
Yes.
Find your own definition of success. So what is success for Sally Allen? What's success for me?
Yes.
And you live it. Don't compare yourself. Take the gifts that God has given you and develop them and work with them. Play to them. Okay. You find humor in the absurd.
Yeah.
My husband is a very happy person, very positive. And I know we didn't come here to talk about him today, but I feel like most of my life for 40 years has been about how he has influenced me. But humor is one of his strong suits. You can't plan everything. So if you try to plan everything in your life, you just can't. You have to be flexible, and people of resilience are flexible. You create a support system.
Yes.
A trusted network of people.
Yes.
And 11, you take care of yourself. You need to be strong, and you've got to be strong to weather adversity.
Right.
So don't wait for adversity to get strong. Get strong now. Build those muscles up.
Yes.
Mental, emotional, spiritual muscles. Build them up, because when tough times come, and my grandma told me when I was a kid, Karen, if you're not experiencing tough times now, you will.
You will.
I'm like, thanks, Grandma. But that's what happened.
Yeah. Yeah. I think life is all about upside down, right? And I've said this many times. Either you're going through a trial, you're in the middle of a trial, or you're coming out of it.
Right.
It's all about that. And I just love that last one you share, is that if you have a strong foundation, especially a lot of those tie into having a great network of friends, that's foundational
Right.
to resiliency, and then building off of that. But for you in particular, I wrote down a couple that really, really speaks to. Right before we started, I didn't know you had 2 types of cancer, and that just blew my mind, because every time I see you're so positive and upbeat, and how, did you ask for help? Because that's resilience, right?
I can fake it really well. So being trained in voice performance in college, they train you for the stage.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I was heading. And then I fell in love and got married and started having children. And it became more about just helping out the church and being involved in ministry and worship. But you have to. What was your question? I lost track on that one. To be perfectly honest.
I was asking, did you ask for help? Because that's part of resiliency, knowing your limitations, right? Those two tie into each other, and asking for help. And did you ask for help when you were going through those hard times? even having kids, or when you were battling cancer?
Right.
What did you struggle with?
Well, I struggled probably with all of these.
Right.
I mean, we can look and appear one way on the outside, to get back to the stage. But Sally, the reality is all of us are on a journey, and all of these are difficult. So asking for help, sometimes you just get so in yourself and in your head, you forget to ask for help.
Yeah.
It's not like you don't want help. You're so overcome by the trial and that struggle that you just get so inward. And that's where it helps when someone says, come on, move on. What do you need? Ask for help. I remember having a couple shoulder surgeries as well. And one lady called me up and said, what can I do? Can I come over and help clean your house? And I was kind of embarrassed by that because I'm a pretty good house cleaner and I felt like I should be able to do this myself, but I couldn't. I had my arm in a sling.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I had to allow her to come and help me. We have to allow people that ability to follow through to help us,
Right.
and we can ask for help as well. That's important to do as well.
Yeah, I love that. As you say that, the things that's running through my head is allowing people to use their gifts to bless us.
Right, because guess what? They're getting blessed for doing that, right? It's more
That's
blessed to
right.
give than to receive. So
Yeah.
let's not rob their blessing.
Yes.
If we
Yeah.
say, "Oh, it's okay, I can handle it," they're like, "Oh, I wanted to make you a pan of lasagna for your family because I know you can't cook right now," or
Right.
"I wanted to clean your house."
Yeah.
We have to,
And yeah, because that comes back to their gift of hospitality. That's what they do.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, Refuge for Women, I
Uh-huh.
realized, what am I doing in an organization that's rescuing women from human trafficking?
Right.
I don't have building blocks in that area.
Right.
It was music all my life. So, I'm in a position now where I know God has placed me. So, what am I going to do about it? One of the first things I did, Sally, was I recognized my weaknesses.
Mm.
I found the person who could do that thing. In other words, it was their strength. So,
Yeah.
social media, fundraising, event planning, all the things that I didn't really want to do and I wasn't good at.
Right.
I found the ones that did and just made the ask. I asked for help.
Yeah.
And they stepped up to the bat. And I built a team of people that could do those things that I couldn't. And then
Yeah.
it enabled them to give their gifts. They
Yes.
got excited. They brought their family and their friends into our network. And Refuge for Women grew because of a small army of people that knew what their gifts were, and they were a team.
Wow.
That's how we opened up that first house.
That is so incredible because a lot of people, I know some, not a lot of people, but some people who tend to hold on to what they think they can do.
Yeah.
And there's so much pride surrounding that if I ask for help, it means that I can't do my job. And you recognize
Yeah.
what your gifts were
Yeah.
and what you should allocate to other people to help you with.
And don't you think desperation sometimes is the tool God uses to get to that place where we ask for help? I was not only desperate for God to give me the wisdom to do this role, but to give me the people to do the stuff I couldn't do. So my desperation for help and needing to build a team became very evident as I was desperate in what I called digging the nails in the carpet type desperation, where I would wake up in the morning and go, no, I wouldn't wake up in the morning. Let me back up. I'd wake up at 2 in the morning and I would be desperate and have to go right down to the couch and hit the ground on my knees because I didn't have any other recourse. It had to be going to the Lord and saying, I'm desperate. I do not know. I don't know how to raise all this money. I have to raise $350,000 a year to sustain a home. That's
Wow.
just to sustain it.
Yeah.
Where am I going to get a home?
Yeah.
And Sally, here's my testimony for Refuge for Women for 4 years and 4 months. For the most part, consistently, waking up in the middle of the night, going downstairs, hitting the floor, praying and crying out to the Lord, and then getting up, moving on,
Yes.
and thinking, okay, a greatest act of faith is for me not to wallow in this.
Right. Getting back to your list.
You grieve your loss, you make a plan, you move on.
Right.
So prayer, you're done praying. Okay, now get up,
That's
go
right.
back to bed because you need your sleep, and move on. And I'd walk upstairs and recite a certain passage about, Thou, O Lord, are a shield about me, you're the glory and the lifter of my head. That's what got me back to sleep because
Yeah.
your body needs to sleep.
That's right.
And then I would wake up in the morning and go, okay, hit the ground running, go to meetings, go to fundraisers, whatever it was I had to do. And then by the end of the day, I could look back on that day and write down all the ways God showed up and showed off. Like
Wow.
somebody would call out of the blue and say, we have a $10,000 check for Refuge for Women. Somebody would call and say, hey, Lowe's has decided to make us their community partner, so they're going to come in and redo the whole house for us. I'm like, how does this stuff
So
happen?
happened. Yeah,
It happens when we get on our knees and we're desperate
that's
and we
right.
dig our nails into the carpet
Right.
and we cry out to the Lord. And I don't like being in that place, Sally. I don't like
Yeah.
whether it was finding out about cancer, both times, finding out about my daughter's cancer. You know, when you ride those storms of life up and down, um, it's hard to be in a place of desperation. But when you are, God shows up.
That's right. That's right. I love, I want to touch back on when you say, talk about limitations, because when I quit the corporate world in 2020, I got a couple of nonprofit, including the church, that reached out to me for jobs. And just, I just knew my limitations. I can't raise funds. I'm not qualified for those positions. But God wants me out here, and I didn't know why, because I turned down 5 positions in 1 year, and I didn't know why. And I had to really pray about it. And the best thoughts comes in the shower, and
They do.
I was praying in the shower, and I got this thought that I want you out there. I want you out there. I don't want you in the church. I don't want you in a nonprofit. I just want you out there right now. And I understood that when the other opportunities came in, they were so diverse
Right.
and so many different companies that Karen, in 1 year, I coached 500 people.
See, those are things only God can do.
Yeah.
God shows up, and I like to say he shows off.
Yeah. And
You're
you're
like,
like, how do you have,
oh,
not 500 people, 500 sessions?
yeah,
So I touched like 300. And
yeah.
it's like, how did you
How
get
does
there?
that happen?
How does that happen? But I understood
Yeah,
then.
yeah.
Yeah.
I can't conjure that stuff up.
No,
I'm
we
not
can't make
I'm
it
not
up.
smart enough. I do my
No.
best to be resilient,
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, I will honestly say it was on my knees crying out to the Lord and then watching him just bring about what we needed to get that house open.
Yeah.
And then he had to bring the women, and then it got crazy.
Crazy. Yeah, I can
Got
imagine that.
really crazy.
Yeah. So I want to touch on, for moms listening to this, or anybody who's gone through the cancer part of what you've gone through. I want to touch on that. How many kids did you have at the time, and how did you navigate that? How would you encourage someone through that, Karen?
I had three children at the time.
The first time.
The first one. So
Yeah.
back in 1995, I was holding Michaela, who's I think I can't remember how old she is right now.
Yeah.
She's born in 93. Do the math. So anyway, I'm holding Michaela. At the time, she's about a year and a half, and walking downstairs. And I stood in front of a mirror, and I looked at her and I saw this lump on my neck. So this is 1995. And I thought, what's that? Anyway, a couple months later, I'm under the knife, and they're removing my whole thyroid because it was a tumor. So that was the first one. Breast cancer was in 2018 during Refuge for Women.
And your mindset, like
Oh.
you have 3 children.
Oh, scared to death.
Yeah.
Because my
Yeah.
mind, Sally, and I hate to say this, my mind goes to a dark place right away. Right away. That's
Yeah.
probably why I have to get on
Like
my knees.
90% of us. Yeah.
Sure. Oh no, I'm going to die. Oh no, my husband's going to be without a wife and without a, so you just go to the dark place. And I suspect I'm probably normal that way. Maybe
You
a
are.
lot of us
You
do.
are. Yeah.
It's what we do.
Yes.
It's how
Yeah.
we come out of that. It's probably in here somewhere. But so when that happens, and that's normal, and yeah, you just pray and you walk through it. And I went through anger. I think I went through some of those stages of grief even, because I was mad at God. I'm like, how can this happen? And then
Yeah.
I was thinking the worst, and then I was sad, but you just have to get through it. You have to go through the steps, do what the doctors say, get through it, pray, have people praying around you, helping you, asking for help,
Yeah.
and you get through it.
So it's going through all of that you just read to us, going through all of it, but recognizing
Yeah.
that you want to ask for help.
Yeah.
Your husband gets you out of, okay, Karen, move on.
Move on.
Let's go.
Yeah.
And accept your limitation.
Right.
Yeah. Being there for, did you feel any sense of, guilt? Because sometimes I hear people say like they feel a sense of guilt when they go through stuff like that.
Not, no, not the cancer and not the thyroid, or not the thyroid cancer, not the breast cancer, because there was nothing that I felt like I did to bring
Okay,
that on.
good.
You go through confusion and you go through doubt and you go through questioning, like where is this going to go? How is
Yeah,
this going to end up? You certainly go through that.
right.
No guilt. There were other things that would come about in life maybe that didn't so much bring guilt but brought questioning. We had our first son who is an amazing young man right now. He's a godly individual, serves the Lord, serves the local church, but he went through a tough time when he was 18, 19 years old. Um, and yeah, going through that together with David was a very difficult time.
Right.
That took the church to come around us. We did need people around us to help walk us through the prodigal son years. And Aaron looks back now, and that's his testimony he uses. He teaches in a youth group, and he's got these young boys, and he's challenging them now, and he's very good at taking what he went through and bringing it forward. But it was hard, and I don't know that there was guilt, Sally, but there was. Well, did we do something wrong?
Yeah.
Now, when you're parenting, you're doing the best you can,
Yes.
and you are the parent, and people are going to give you a lot of advice, and they're going to tell you what you should do, how you should do it. But you and your spouse together have to get on your knees and pray and ask God, what should we do about this? And
Yeah.
we made decisions based on that,
Yeah.
not on guilt, not on trying to look back. What did we do wrong? We just needed to move forward. And young moms need to know that when they go through those storms with their children, like right now, kids that are 3, 4, my grandkids, they're just beautiful and fun, but now they're learning to say no and they're having little
Right.
attitudes and they're beating their chest like Tarzan when they're upset. But someday they're going to go through a phase,
Yeah.
and my daughters and sons-in-law will have to face that.
Right.
And what are they going to do?
Yeah, yeah. So I love that. I love, the story of the prodigal son for anybody listening to this. And I think you already gave some encouraging words, but praying and community helped you and David walk through this. What are some other things that help you guys walk through it? Because it's a quite common story.
It is. And
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to praying, and I don't want to sound super spiritual in this because I don't consider myself having a gift of prayer or a prayer warrior.
Yeah.
But Sally, that is what got us through it. It was
Mm.
when you wake up in the middle of the night, and I'll speak to the young moms right now. When you
Yes.
wake up in the middle of the night, you can't sleep because you're thinking of what's going on with your kids. And man, it could be a myriad of things, right? Hit the ground. Hit the ground and seek get get in front of the Lord and pour it out. I would go to my closet at the time as our house had a walk-in closet, had my Bible already laid open and laying there. Sally, I would go into my closet middle of the night and pray and read scripture and pray that scripture over my son,
Mm.
journal it. I could look back on those journals and just be like in awe of what God did. It is not an understatement to say when you're struggling and you're going through those ups and downs, that journey of parenting or your marriage, hit the ground. Get on your knees and pray. The
Yeah.
fervent prayer of a righteous man avails much. And we can't get around any of those verses. We can't ignore them that say, upon you, Lord, I wait. I wait upon you.
Yeah.
Early in the morning will I seek you.
Yes.
I know.
I'm looking at you smiling. I'm like,
What else can you
preach it,
do?
Karen, preach it. Yeah.
It's the truth. And Sally, I
Right,
could
right.
walk out of here, go home, and face something very difficult. I don't know.
Absolutely,
I don't know what
absolutely.
tomorrow's going to
We
bring.
don't know what the next second is going to
We
bring. We
don't
have no
know.
idea.
But I'm going to
Yeah.
live by these words because I've
Right.
lived them. And I will go to my knees again and I'll say, God, I don't understand this. I don't know what you're doing. I'm frustrated. I'm confused. I'm depressed. I'm anxious.
Yeah.
I'm not sleeping. And I know I'm speaking to probably every mom out there right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Marriages are going through a lot of stuff. We have a pre-marriage class we do, David and I, and couple after couple after couple, and
Mm.
we just go,
Wow. Yeah.
wow, how is this going to work?
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
I'm,
Karen, was there a time in your life when I know faith grows over the years, but
mhm.
was there a time in your life when you felt like man, I could use some faith right now. I don't feel this, you're so shaken by something.
Every one of those situations I just spoke of.
Oh, yeah,
So getting the call from the doctor
right,
in 1995 saying
right.
it's papillary carcinoma. That lump in your neck is cancer.
Oh,
Okay. Um, my son's girlfriend walking in the front door as I was heading out to church to a staff meeting. I'm pregnant. Now what am I
mm,
going to do?
yeah, yeah.
Um, Getting a call from my son who was in jail. He ended up in jail overnight.
Wow.
He wanted to call home, and another jail guy gave him his phone. It's a funny story.
Yeah.
Um, I tell you, getting a normal mammogram, or just getting a mammogram,
Yeah, yeah,
and my doctor calling me and saying it's not good.
yeah,
So we need to deal with this. Sally, again, not knowing how where in the world were we going to get a house to open up? How are we going to pay for it? How are we going to sustain it? What happens to the women when they come in the home? How are we going to give them enough counseling and program and help to give them in a year what they need from years of trauma, maybe since they were 3 years old and being trafficked and sold by their moms? So yeah, it's so many situations in my life where, um, yeah, it's
yeah.
normal.
It's
And
normal.
every person listening to this podcast, like you said,
Yes.
what are they going to do? They will have a decision to make. How are they going to show up resilient? They're probably good at some of these, but not good at others.
Yeah.
But life teaches you, right?
Yes.
Life is the best teacher.
And if you were to pick one of those that you think is most important, what would it be? I know they're all important.
Hmm. Well, it's interesting. They are all important.
Yeah.
But when I was looking at this article and I read number 11 and it said you take care of yourself.
Mm.
There's so much emphasis put on me, 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 me.
Mm-hmm.
Whether
Mm-hmm.
it's social media, selfies, self-help books.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't even like to read, so I'm not even going to read those anyway. But
Yeah.
to take care of yourself, Sally, is on a lot of different levels. So how do we become resilient when storms of life come? We do have to make sure we are ready. We've taken care of us. So what does it mean to be ready?
Yes.
Well, let's look at emotionally ready. In other words, some of these come into play. You don't complain,
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
stop criticizing.
Yeah.
Deal with it.
Right.
Um, so resiliency, taking care of yourself is not only emotional, it's spiritual.
Yes.
So that's where I get back to, listen, and I'm not talking about yoga.
That's
I'm
right.
not talking about meditation. I'm not talking about,
Working out.
well, I am going to talk about
Oh,
working out,
okay. Okay.
but I'm talking about true spirituality in the sense of
Mm.
what God says it is.
Yeah.
God says that it's through His Son Jesus. So true spirituality. So making sure we're right in a right relationship with God. Okay,
Yeah.
and physically. So physically, I hate to work out. I do not like going to the gym. If I walk into the gym and say, enjoy your workout, I want to say, no, I'm not going to enjoy my workout. But when I'm done and I walk out that door, I'm very happy.
Yeah.
And I was talking to my son this morning. He'd gone
Yeah.
to the gym and we were talking about working out and stuff. And I said, Killian, I don't like to work out. For me, it is, and I was maybe going through this with him, it is sheer discipline.
Right.
And eating. Sally, I love donuts. I love cookies and pie, and I love all that stuff. And you can have that, but you can't have it
Right.
all the time,
Right.
right?
Right.
So, right kind of eating. And I'm not a
Yeah.
nutritionist. I know nothing about like nutritionist stuff,
Right. Right.
but I do know how my body reacts when I eat
Right.
junk
Right.
and when I eat right.
Mm-hmm.
So, resiliency, we do have to take care of ourselves. We have to get sleep. If there's something interrupting our sleep, we got to get to the bottom of it and fix it
Yeah.
because our bodies have to have rest.
Yeah.
So, I do believe resiliency is
Taking care of you.
everything.
Yeah. I like that. I think they're old school. Like when I first became a Christian, it was always told like you don't put yourself first. you put others first, right? I was in a very radical church where you put others first. And for years, I believe that you always put people first. And believe it or not, like 14 years ago when we moved to Vegas, I learned like the term wearing your oxygen mask first. Because you're good to no one if you don't have your oxygen mask
That's
first.
right.
And,
You're
and
depleted.
Yeah,
You
you're
don't,
depleted.
right. You
You
don't
have to
have,
fill your cup.
right.
Yeah, in order, and I also learned this is key. You just don't fill your cup. When your cup is full, whatever is overflowing goes to other people. Like that is key, because you need your cup to be full all the time, and the overflow goes to other people. And it really changed my life radically, because I was always a people pleaser, putting other people first.
There's an old song. It's running through my head. I'm thinking,
Yeah,
do I remember the
sing it.
lyrics? Fill my cup, Lord. I lift it up, Lord. Come and quench this thirsting of my soul. Bread of heaven, feed me till I want no more. Fill my cup, lift it up and make me whole. That's exactly what we're talking about.
Look,
That
it's
song is a
beautiful.
zillion years old. I mean, we're talking probably
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
70s, but
Thank
I'm
you for
a child of the
singing.
70s. But we would sing that in church.
Yeah.
And yeah, we need to be filled, but
Right.
bottom line, if it's not coming from him, and he created us, he knows our bodies, he knows what we
That's
need,
right.
he knows what makes us resilient. We have to be seekers of an eternal God and get our cup filled.
Get our cup filled. Yeah. Karen, I just love. I didn't get to sit with you before this, like shortly, I was sitting with you and David the other day. But I just love your transparency. I just love how much value you're bringing to this episode.
Oh, well, thank you. It's been a
You
real honor, and it's
are.
been very fun to talk
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah, no, this is great. We're not done yet. I have so many questions that's going through my head. I'm thinking like,
Fire
what do I
away.
do?
I'll try
What
to
do I
give
do?
my answers in short little bites instead of 10-minute segments.
Yeah. Hey, listen, let's talk about something fun.
Sure.
When we were in Poland, David told a story, and he learned a good lesson from that story, the yogurt story.
Oh, no, the
Let's talk
yogurt
about something
story.
fun. You got to share that story.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't very resilient at the time because, well, since then, David and I have learned through teaching probably several hundred people now that have come through our home in this marriage course that we lead people through. We've since learned where the problem came from. But the problem, what happened we weren't even married. We weren't even engaged. We were dating. His mother and dad were leaving town in a little town north of the Twin Cities where David and I were both going to school. So we got in the car and we were driving up after I got off work one late night. We were driving up to this little town north of the Twin Cities. His parents had left town. So David and I decided, let's go stay in the house. Now, David had his old room from when he was a kid. And his parents' room was across the hallway. And that's where I was going to sleep. But when we got there, it was really late. And it was my birthday. And David said nothing all evening about my birthday. And that's like an hour drive from the Twin Cities now. So now we're going to bed and I'm mad. I'm like, When I grew up, birthdays were important, Sally. And my mother asked us what kind of cake we wanted. And we took pictures and we sat around the dining room table. Birthdays were very then and now, very present. And as far as I could tell, he either didn't care or didn't remember. So I was going to teach him a lesson. And now I am all of 19 years old. So I'm going to say 19-year-old stupidity, not very resilient. I went downstairs, got in his mother's refrigerator, grabbed a very special spoon that to this day I still have because I told her when she dies I want that spoon. So I still have the big old spoon, and I went and got some blueberry yogurt out of the refrigerator, and I put it on that spoon, and I walked up those steps, and my heart was pounding because I knew what I was going to do was so bad, and I knew that it was very evil, and why am I behaving this way? You're such a selfish brat. And so I got upstairs, walked into his room, and I blopped it on his face, and I said out loud, "You'll never forget my birthday again." And I turned around, walked back into his parents' room, pretended like I was asleep, and my heart's pounding. I'm thinking,
what did I just
how did
do?
why did I, oh my goodness. Well, so I hear David get up. I hear him walk into the bathroom. He goes downstairs and sees the yogurt. He thought he'd been sick. To this day, he thinks that blueberry yogurt smells like something else. He realizes, okay, so he walks back upstairs. He sits on the bed and he says, Karen, what is going on? And I said, you forgot
My
my birthday.
birthday.
Such a selfish brat. He goes, he gets up, he walks all the way downstairs, goes in the back of his car, grabs a brown paper bag with some fry pans. Because he's so practical. Because men are so practical, right?
Wait.
Not flowers, not chocolates, fry pans. Okay. And they weren't even wrapped, they were still in a brown paper bag. And so he walks upstairs, he plops them on the bed and goes, there, happy birthday. And he
What
goes,
am I gonna do it for?
and then he said the words I'll never forget. He goes, I don't know if I can ever trust you. Because he got yogurt on his face while he was asleep. So now I'm feeling really bad. We probably had a little kiss and makeup and then went to sleep. You know, I don't think he's ever forgotten my birthday since. We've had to refine the flowers thing.
Yeah.
You know,
From frying pans to
flowers.
Yeah.
Does that sound familiar, women listening out there and watching? What we learned later was the way he grew up and the way I grew up.
Key.
Entirely different. And when you go into a marriage thinking that that's going to be important to your spouse and you haven't talked about it yet,
That's right.
boom,
That's right.
it's going to come up.
That's right. And that segued nicely into the next thing I wanted to talk about, which is the love languages.
Yeah.
And I know you guys do, you know, the married couples, but talk to us a little bit about that for couples who don't know about the love languages and understanding the love languages and how enriching that could make your marriage.
Love languages is just the way you personally feel loved. So let's say my love language is gifts, which is one of them. When you take the test, I think it comes out quality time, acts of service, gifts. There's a couple others.
Touching.
Yeah, personal touch.
Yeah.
And then there's another one. But if your love language is gifts and your spouse never does that for you, somehow you don't feel loved, right?
Right. It's a thing, right? It's a real thing.
It is a real thing, and you should never feel bad about that because that's just the way you're wired. Is it because of the way you grew up? Is it the way God just made you? Who knows? But the reality is when you get married, you've got two people coming together that speak love differently.
Yeah.
And feel love differently. So you have to figure out, it's important for you to know their love language, not so much your own.
Right.
And it's important for them to know yours.
That's right.
Right. If you assume that, like if my love language is gifts, and I assume that David's is gifts, and I shower gifts on him,
yeah,
it doesn't really register because it's not his love language.
That's right. It doesn't make him feel loved.
Right. But if I give him encouraging words, then he's going to, that does something. So that also goes into this other little thing we call, and I think it's, I forget who developed this, Willard Harley, his needs, her needs, the love bank. So let's say David continues to speak my love language. And if it's gifts, he keeps giving me. Every time he gives me a gift, I feel loved. That's a chip in the bank. Or anytime he not even just speaks the love language, but just does something that blesses me. It just makes me feel like, wow, I just feel cherished by you. Women need to feel cherished, and men need to be joined in just activity, shared activity. That's how generally population works. There's always rule breakers.
Yeah.
But speaking your love languages and putting chips in the bank, because inevitably you're going to be taking chips out of the bank when you do something stupid.
That's right.
Or annoying.
Yeah.
Or irritating.
Yeah.
Or you have a squabble or something you disagree on. That doesn't feel well, right? So it's like taking a chip out of the bank. You just got to be really careful to keep the chips in the bank.
In the bank,
because there's going to be those deficits. And
so
that's a little bit about what we teach.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's Gary Chapman?
No.
The 5 love languages?
Gary Smalley. Is it Gary Smalley is the 5
love languages? Okay, y'all look it up, the 5 love languages, because it's a really great
Gary
book.
Smalley, I believe, because Gary Smalley came together with Les and Leslie Parrott and put together the Saving Your Marriage Before It Starts course, which is what we teach.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. That's good. So 40 years of marriage, what is your biggest challenge and what is your biggest reward? 40 years.
Family Family's the biggest reward.
Yeah.
David and I really feel like we parented well together. We do it differently,
Yeah.
but we knew how to do it together. Um, and I think raising 4 children in a home where we solidly taught them the word and the Lord paid off. They're not perfect, but they're great kids.
Yeah.
And then they in turn married great spouses and started having great grandchildren or grandchildren that are great.
Yeah.
So a blessing to us. I'd say family was probably the best thing we did together. We also serve real well together. Like if we're
Yeah.
serving side by side and teaching something, we know how to play off of each other really well.
Yeah.
I don't know how that works or why that works, but it does work really well. Like if we were both to stand up and give a seminar on marriage or whatever, we just play off each other, and that goes really well.
Yeah.
Weaknesses, I would say still navigating the differences between just gender differences, like the way he's wired, the way I'm wired, and then sometimes that didn't make sense. Sometimes
Times. Yeah. Yeah.
bumping into that
Yeah.
because you change through life. You don't
Right.
marry the person and then 40 years later.
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully they're for the
Give
better.
it yeah.
Yeah, but we all change, and what changes us is life does.
Yeah.
So just continually, but we've taught this course so many times, Sally, that we have become the greatest recipients because we're constantly teaching these concepts of how to strengthen a marriage by communication, good communication, conflict resolution.
That's awesome. So, talking about that, I have one more question. But how can someone find you guys if they want to take this course?
Call the Crossing
Okay.
Church.
Okay.
And they would put you in touch with somebody on staff that actually leads the marriage sector of what we do at that church,
Okay.
and would connect us. They have a course coming up in August, actually.
Okay.
People can take the course in August. We just wrapped one up 2 nights ago.
Okay. Cool. So, I have one more question for you. What would you tell your younger self, younger Karen, looking back on life? What would you say to younger Karen? What advice would you give her?
Probably what my grandma told me. There are going to be joys, incredible joys, when you center your life on Christ. There's going to be incredible joys and blessings. He promises us an abundant life. So the promise is there. But that there's going to be tough times, and when they come, don't panic. Don't wallow. Get super self-aware. Don't complain. Create a support system. Take care of yourself, because life is tough and life's a journey, and you're not the only one. I would probably say to myself, when you go through these times, you're not the only one. Everybody is on a journey, like you said.
Yeah.
If they haven't or they're not, they will. And what do we do? How can we come around each other and support each other in those times? I'd probably just encourage myself to stay strong in that.
Yeah.
Because we need each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
Life's hard.
Right.
And I know we're talking to probably women out there that are struggling in their marriages and not sure they're going to survive.
Right.
Or they've got children that are
prodigals. Yeah.
off the wall. They don't know what to do with them.
Yeah.
Or they're young mothers. Like my daughters are young mothers, and they can get just so exhausted when the kids get sick. So hang in there and be a support for someone else.
Yeah, that's a beautiful closing, bringing it right back to your list. I love it. Thanks, Karen. This was so good, and I feel like we could go on, but it was. Thank you for sharing.
This was a lot of
being
fun.
Open and vulnerable. I appreciate you.
Not a problem.
Yeah, and with that, friends, it's a wrap today.